Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It is Sunday, Sexy Sunday. There's our theme song, Sexy Sunday. And y'all, today we're going to talk about corsets. Yeah, corsets. And the corset is one of the most misunderstood garments in fashion history. It is a rigid boned bodice that is laced together in order to shape the torso. The reinforced stiffeners made them fit so tightly that the body could be molded into the desired shape. And we're not talking about corsets of today because the one I'm wearing bends with my body. It doesn't hold against me and keep me from, keep me constrained or anything like that. Now, artfully designed clothing alters how the body looks, but the corset dramatically changes the body's shape. Now, it has evolved as fashion trends have changed. But y'all, it has a rather controversial history. The corset was once used as an instrument of social domination to separate the rich from the working class. Only them rich bitches could afford a corset. Long thought of as a device of torture, some historians now think that some women, they may have actually found them positive. And corsets, they can actually be traced all the way back as far as 1600 BC. And it began as a close fitting, sleeveless bodice made of whalebone. Whalebone. I'm not even going there. And that encircled the ribs and compressed the waist. And later on, thank goodness, the whalebone was replaced with steel. Now, both men and women have used the corset to change the appearance of their body. I mean, they were mostly worn by women, but some men also wore them to cinch in the waist. Get rid of that beer gut. And in the shape, it has evolved over the centuries, sometimes longer varieties that covered the hips, and sometimes shorter versions that centered on the waistline. Now, corsets helped shape the body into a distinctive silhouette, from the popular hourglass shape of the 1800s to the S figure of the 1900s. They were an important article of clothing, y'all, for several centuries in Europe. Corsets, they were at their popularity peak in the 19th century. And that's when discussions, they all started about what kind of effect they were having on women's health. Fashion historians have argued that corsets may have caused fainting and lowered vitality, due to the tight lacing. But they all agree that they in no way cause disease. Well, I think some of them thought that in the beginning, but it was disproven. See, they used tight lacing to create the smallest waist possible. So I can see how that would, cause a problem with your breathing, and that would cause fainting. Yeah, I can see that. Now, corsets reached their peak popularity in the Victorian era. And you know what? I looked up the Victorian era to see when that was. And that was the period of Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 to 1901. Yeah. Now, y'all, the corset is typically worn as an undergarment. But in the national dress of many European countries, it's seen being worn on the outside. I mean, when you look up pictures of people in Victorian era, you can see them on the outside. And I usually wear mine on the outside. I usually wear mine with jeans and high heels. And that's because I find the corset very sexy and empowering. And I don't feel the need to cover it with anything else. Now, let me tell you about the caucus tribe. uh, they have for centuries now, and all the way up to today, used the corset to ensure modesty. Corsets were laced tightly with as many as 50 laces, and they had to be worn from childhood until their wedding night. Now, on the wedding night, when the marriage was consummated, and I hope y'all know what that means because I ain't going there, the groom had to slowly and carefully undo each lace in order now to demonstrate his self control to his bride. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that. But now, there, since the in the beginning, there is one major improvement, and that was the hooked busk that allows the wearer to hook the corset herself or himself, whichever it may be, because in the beginning you had to rely on another person to fasten the back laces, right? You had to get, like in the movies, you got feet up against the button, pull it in real tight. But I have one I want to show, and this is one of my corsets. That's upside down. Okay, and here is the hooks and the right here goes together right here, and this one has a really stiff. This one has metal in the front, and then this is what it looks like stretched all out. And back here is the where it laces up. But y'all, I don't see how it could get too tight. This is just ribbon, And on the inside, this is a shorter version. And on the inside, it's got this little flap. So that way, these little eyes don't hurt your back. But this one is stiffer than the rest. This is stiffer than the one I have on. And this one that I have on bends with me. And this one is hard to sit in. And this is what it looks like. There you go. Now, let's get back to our story. Corsets as an undergarment originates in Italy and was introduced to the French court by a lady named Catherine de Medici. And women in 1500s French court, they readily embraced it. This type of corset was tight and had an elongated bodice. These women of the French court saw the corset as indispensable to the beauty of the female figure. Now, corsets in this time were often worn with a farthingale. And the farthingale, that was something that held the skirts out in a stiff cone like this, okay? And the corset turned the upper torso into a matching upside down cone shape like this. And at this time, corsets had shoulder straps and ended in flaps at the waist. And this one has shoulder straps, but the other one doesn't. They flattened the bust and pushed the breasts up, if you have any. Later years, intense lacing would be used to make the waist smaller, but it wasn't possible at this time because the holes that the laces went through, they were sewn by hand and would tear under too much strain. So at that time, the emphasis wasn't on the smallness of the waist, but instead on the rigid flatness of the bodice front and the curving tops of the breast peeking over the top of the corset. In other words, them bitches wanted to show off their boobs without appearing like a streetwalker. Hey, they just wanted to be wearing the in thing at the time. They couldn't help it if it showed off the goods just a little bit and it got men's attention, right? Yeah, we all know how women are. Even back then. And my corsets, they give me sexual empowerment, I feel sexy. I feel beautiful. I feel good when I wear mine. And my husband likes it too. Now, by the 1900s, I got all sidetracked there. By the 1800s, the corset had become the primary method of supporting the breast. And during this time, corsets slimmed the waist, but that was not the primary purpose. It was also used to tighten the midriff support the back, and improve posture. See, the corsets helps women stand up straight with their shoulders down and back, right? Like this, like when you put a book, like the models or whatever, and you put a book on your head and walk like this. Well, the corsets helped with that. It also slightly narrowed the waist, creating a V shape under torso, which spit it out. I can't talk today, y'all. It created a V-shaped upper torso over which the outer garment was then worn. In the early 1800s, just after the French Revolution, now women temporarily gave up all their symbols of aristocracy. Remember I said only the rich bitches could afford it? Well, these women gave up all their symbols of that power, including the corset, and they gave it up for looser clothing that seemed to promote the new ideas of freedom in political life. The corset did return a few years later, however. Now, at first, the corset accentuated a woman's natural form, producing the hourglass figure with tight compression of the waist. But throughout the 1800s, corset forms became more and more exaggerated. The clothing got tighter around the waist and the torso, and the corset compressed in more and more of the body to create what they considered the ideal female shape from shoulder to thigh. By the 1830s, the corset served the dual purpose of supporting the breasts and narrowing the waist. Now, by this time, y'all, the corset had changed its shape to the hourglass silhouette that is even now considered typical for the Victorian era. Most fashion of that era used the hourglass silhouette. This was also the time when steel stays started replacing whalebone. In 1839, a Frenchman named Jean Worley was given the first patent for women's corsets made on the loom. Now, this type of corset was popular until around 1890 when machine-made corsets took its place. But now, before this, y'all, all corsets were typically handmade from home. But wasn't everything typically handmade from home back then? By the turn of the 20th century, women traded corsets for the girdle. The girdle was less confining, yet still shaped the body to fit the specific body ideal. But y'all, by the 1980s, diet, exercise, and even plastic surgery took the place of manipulating the body into the perfect form. But between 1902 and 1908, decorative suspenders for stockings were attached to the corset. And by 1917, the corset had all but all fallen out of favor. Corsets were used to create and enforce erotic discomfort and sexual pleasure. However, bitches, the corset has always signified beauty and oppression. And today, women have reclaimed it as a symbol of empowerment and pride in their sexuality. Then, in the 1920s, bustiers came along and was worn to hold breasts and create a smooth foundation. And all that really was cutting the corset in half. But we're not going to talk about bustiers today, kitty cats. That's next time, Sexy Sunday. Now, by the 1990s, designers brought in a new era in which the corset became a symbol of sexual empowerment instead of sexual oppression by showing the corset as outerwear instead of underwear. And I don't know the ages of everybody watching, but do you remember Madonna? Well, now, Madonna, she pushed the sexual boundaries and the fashion boundaries of that time, and she wore a lot of sexy outfits that were not considered politically correct at that time. Now, today's corsets are worn more for aesthetics, and they're also worn as fashion statements. Some are even used for medical purposes. And today's fashion industry has only borrowed the term corset because today's corsets only mimic the look of traditional ones without acting like them. They only imitate a historical style of corset that does not have any effect on the shape of the wearer's body. Now, men can also wear corsets to get that so-called feminine shape, and it is perfectly acceptable in today's time to do that. Hey, to each their own. Now, now that the popular silhouette is curvaceous with a big butt and big boobs and a small waist, I think the corset can make a comeback. There is and is always going to be an ongoing love for body modification. People are just not happy with their bodies, so they're always going to want to modify it and new extreme ways to present ourselves. So why not use the corset? And to me, there is no shame in wanting to express your fashion identity through the wearing of a corset. I mean, I wear mine all the time. Put it on. See if it don't make you feel empowered, make you feel beautiful. Well, y'all, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story of the corset. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it was easy to follow because I kind of felt like it's a little bit all over the place. And but anyway, like and share it if you enjoyed it. I mean, send the love my way, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next time. Bye.